Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. There have been a few characters out of the line of fire of the nightmares aboard the Leviathan this season. For some of them, the reasons for that might seem very obvious. One such character that comes to mind for that is Lord Saladin. Whilst we helped Saladin set the memory of the Iron Lords to rest in Rise of Iron, who knows if their nightmares still might linger on. The nightmares of old Iron Lord companions lost to Siva might be a terrifying thing to behold indeed. For others, however, it's not as simple as that. Take, for example, the Kell of the House of Light, and the one of the more recent occupants of the last city, Mithrax. Mithrax too has nightmares, and his are ones that force us to examine his own allegiances that have shifted over the years, and how those that he has lost now haunt him still. So Mithrax has taken it upon himself to become the Kell for those Eliksni who are free-thinking, and who have decided to not side with darkness and with Eramis's House of Salvation, which still languishes somewhat on Europa. More importantly, he has decided to pursue peace with the Guardians of the Lost City and to ensure the continued survival of his species by placing them within the protection of the city's walls. These endeavours are noble, and it's a clear indication of the kind of person that he is, but that wasn't always the story. At a certain point in time, Mithrax was a member of the House of Wolves. This house was not only one of the most notorious for its raids on the territory of the Awoken, but also for the savage losses that they had suffered during those times. The Reef Wars are a story that I think I've meant to continuously pick up on so many times, and you know what, one day I will make a full compendium of the stuff to do with it. Let me know if you want that video this season actually, because we are going into the point at which it's a little bit quieter in the story, and we might at last have time to tell that. Anyway, the point is, Mithrax at this point in time was a very different kind of Eliksni. I think this is a point that's best demonstrated by the time that he first met and was captured by Sieur Ido. When this happened, he attempted to escape the legendary Awoken warrior, and in the process, instead of trying to kill her or escape back to his people, he tried to throw himself off of one of the cliffs of the Dreaming City. His justification for such an extreme action according to his own perspective is explained in the lore tab of the Dreaming City lorebook, and in particular the Mizrax entry, and it's quite shocking. An excerpt from it reads as follows. The Vandal stoops as he exits the galliot. All of his arms are bound behind his back, so he cannot shield his eyes from the bright sun. A breeze stirs his cloak. There is a cliff behind him and lush gardens ahead. His jailer would not grant him the honor of a quick death, so she must intend to torture him. She thinks he will yield like the flesh lovers from House Judgment. She is wrong. Whatever indignities she can muster are nothing compared to what he deserves. With his chin held high, he imagines shucking off his armor and laying all four of his arms in his captain's hands. His captain is his mother, and she will not dock him with a scythe. She will twist and tear his arms from his body like she is shucking a fine fat crab for dinner. And he will be glad of the slow, sick cracks and crunches of his bones. He will be glad of the shame. Let him go limbless for the rest of his wasted life. Let the ether thirst shrivel him up like a Yarvisi fig. What do you think? His jailer asks in a language he cannot understand. She steps up beside him and claps a hand on his shoulder. He flinches. She is not nearly as tall as he is, and for a creature with no claws, her grip is strong and sure. Together they contemplate the gardens. It's all a bit much for my taste, she admits, as he sneaks a furtive look at her. Her bow is unstrung. There is only one arrow in her quiver. She is stupid. He whirls, trips her, and sprints for the cliff. She swears, recovers, and lunges after him. As he pitches himself off the cliff, he thinks of his mother's shame and prays that she forgets him. Better that she never had a son than a weakling so easily captured by the enemy. It is his bad luck that she catches his foot with one hand. His helmet slams into the rocky cliffside. A piece of his rebreather cracks off and disappears into the mist far below. He flails, but he cannot drag her down with him. Somehow, she hauls him in like a fish. As soon as she has him on solid ground, she binds his ankles with the string of her bow. "All right," she says, catching her breath. All right. She chuckles, pats his shoulder fondly, and then pulls him upright like a sack of sakiks. She takes a step back, brushing off her hand against the seat of her trousers. He glowers, the surliest sakik sack this side of the great machine, hating her horrible squared-off teeth and her blunt, stubby fingers. Let's try this again, shall we? Mithrax believed that his captain, his own mother, would dock him and visit terrible injustices upon him for his own failure. But the thing is, he didn't even see them as injustices. He saw them as justice. He believed that such harsh punishment was deserved. This was a time when Mithrax was willing to give up his life before ever attempting to win his freedom back and return to his mother, because he knew that, in her eyes, he was something to be ashamed of. This is the outlook that many Eliksni had. This is the place where Mithrax, mentally speaking, was for a very long time. This was once the view of many Eliksni, and it's most certainly not to be blamed on them because, for the longest time, this bleak outlook on life was very fitting to their situation. The terrible things that had happened to the culture of their once proud people on the diaspora from Reese is something often spoken of in tones of regret and fear, but it's left a tangible mark. A mark that can be seen easily from Mithrax's comments. Mithrax would, to a certain extent, start to abandon these views of his past life, but it's also fair to say that he would not leave them completely behind until his first encounter with us, when we spared his life on Titan. I have a video on that which I can link in the end card if you guys want to go ahead and see that. It's a very important video with regards to Mithrax's story. In the times between our meeting with him and his first encounter with Sieur Ido, Mithrax was at one point promoted to a captain of the Eliksni within the ranks of the House of Dusk, and it appears that he may well have followed in his mother's footsteps somewhat. Those times are still a mystery to us to an extent, that's for certain, but the new lore from the Season of the Haunted implies that even Mithrax is haunted by the actions of his past life, a life where he might have been equally as harsh as his mother for those who had failed in their station below him. The Phantasmal Shell tells us a little more about this, about the regrets that Mithrax has, and about how they may have come back to haunt him in the form of those that he might have maimed or even killed. Mithrax repeats the mantra to himself as he makes his way across the helm. It was not long ago that this wing housed the servitor that sustained the House of Light and aided the Vanguard in stopping the endless night. But now, something altogether different lurks within these walls. As he descends the stairs into the hangar bay, he sees it for the first time. The Crown of Sorrow. Large and grotesque, seated ominously in the spot the servitor once occupied. That is when he hears the voices. Mithrax, they hiss in unison. Out of the corner of his eyes, he sees their shadows skittering along the walls and ceiling. Dregs, vandals, faces he vaguely recognizes. Names he barely knew or never learned. The light provides. Even in his own mind, his voice sounds somehow smaller. Kell of Light, Captain of Death. They swarm toward him now, phantasmal ether bleeding from wounds he inflicted in another life. We remember. We remember what you did. We remember who you are. The light provides, he tells himself as a shiver runs down his back. The light provides. The light. Mithrax? He spins around, splicer gauntlet poised to strike. Only when he sees Crow standing at the wing's entrance does he lower it. What's going on? The hunter asks. It is nothing, Mithrax lies. The voices are silent, their shadows gone, but not forgotten. Excuse me. He pushes past Crow without another word, desperate to leave the past behind. This might be a simple instance of the Crown of Sorrow haunting those who are in its proximity, thanks to the influence of the pyramid and the nightmares contained within its bounds. But I think it's fair to say that these nightmares are a reminder of the reputation that Mithrax's past holds. He was once perhaps the same butcher that the rest of the Eliksni people were, in the time when they had been culturally devastated by their own collapse, the Whirlwind. But this past is one that clearly haunts him, one that he is having to come to terms with. We have to simply hope that the change he has made means enough both to himself and to his compatriots that they are able to put the past behind them. If he is able to rally enough of the remaining Eliksni, he may need to confront this past and ensure that he is able to square the circle of forgiveness that Zavala, Keitel, and Crow have. If not, there may be trouble within the ranks of the House of Light. But I think it's fair to say that Mithrax and the culture that he's embodied within the House is also one that promotes empathy, forgiveness, and understanding. If the House of Light is willing to adopt an individual such as Akalux, also known as Namrask, the former butcher of the House of Devils, the one who sacked Golden Age London during the collapse, I think it would be fair to say that Mithrax too can be forgiven for his past crimes in a life that he no longer leads. But that's all speculative, and we will see if this comes to a point in any future story that we hear about Mithrax. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like, and remember that you can leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. And if you want more Destiny lore content, go ahead and hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. As per usual though, know that your viewership has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Per audacia ad astra. I'll see you, Starside.